So what's going to happen when Joe Biden looks up and sees that flights aren't going around the United States anymore? That's what's going to wind up happening. Come the end of this month, we are going to face Armageddon when airline pilots are saying, you know what, I'm not going up, I'm not flying because you're not sticking a needle in my arm. Today's guest is pushing back. He's a pilot and he's hitting the warning bell.
Why aren't the people in Washington putting themselves in harm's way? Why aren't they walking the walk as well as talking the talk? Their position in Washington is to do the will of the people. I don't see anybody in Washington doing the will of the people anymore. The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I am DML, and you are listening to the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast. The exclusive sponsor of this program is DMLCBD.com. Go there today and get the best CBD products that can make you feel great again. This podcast is for independent thinkers who want to recapture the great American experience, and they know it all starts with sharing the unfiltered facts, truth, and opinions I give you every day. Today's podcast will both shine a light on the solutions that can fix our nation's biggest problems, and it will make you the smartest person in the room. Here we go. Last week, the President of the United States held what would be best described as a softball town hall meeting on CNN, where Anderson Cooper basically saved the president from falling, and I can't get up. When you see Joe Biden up on stage attacking Americans, it becomes so irritating because Donald J. Trump did nothing more than try to make America great again. And he did it for everybody. And yet they attacked him and called him a hater and said that he was combative. And yet Joe Biden has got to be the most combative, even worse than Obama, most combative human being that ever sit in the Oval Office. I want to play a clip here from Anderson Cooper asking about mandates and first responders. First responders, we're hurting right now as a country. Crime is up. They're defunding police. You know, the pandemic, the big bad pandemic. We don't have enough nurses, first responders, EMT folks. We don't have anybody, working at full capacity. There's no place working at full capacity that I know of. They're hurting. Everybody's hurting. It's all around the country. And Joe Biden wants to see people fired and let go. Listen to this.
As many as 1 in 3 emergency responders in some cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, right here in Baltimore, are refusing to comply with city vaccine mandates. I'm wondering where you stand on that. Should police officers, emergency responders be mandated to get vaccines? And if not, should they be stay at home or let go?
Yes and yes. The mandates are working. The stuff about people leaving and people getting it, you have everyone from United Airlines to Spirit, all these airlines, and we're not going to get all 96, 97% of the people have gotten the vaccine. All the talk about all these folks who are going to leave the military if they're mandated. Not true. You got about a 90-some% vaccination rate. I mean, so the idea is that, look, two things that concern me. One are those who just try to make this a political issue. Freedom. I have the freedom to kill you with my COVID. No, I mean, come on. Freedom.
What a complete ass. What a complete ass. My guest today is going to talk about the vaccine mandates and the airlines. Yes. And we are going to debunk what it is that your favorite president there. I know. I'm only kidding. It's Monday morning. I'm screwing with you. What your favorite president there is doing to the country. He's actually destroying the United States of America. I'm now going to bring in my guest. His name is Josh Yoder. He is a pilot for a major airline. He has asked that we do not bring up the airline that he's working for, and I will honor that. He has also asked that we don't talk about things like strikes or walkouts or anything else of that nature, and I understand he would be in a lot of trouble if that's what he was looking to do, or if that's what the kind of thing he's going to say. So even though you may want me to say something like that during our interview, understand why I do not. He started a group called U.S. Freedom Fighters, and he is pushing back hugely against the mandate. He is hitting the warning bell. He's on Fox News. He's been on other podcasts. He is hitting the warning bell about how dangerous it is for the airlines to be subject to these crazy vaccine mandates and what could happen to the economy, to air travel, if it actually goes through towards the end of this month and into December. So Josh Yoder has been a pilot for the past 12 years. I think the past 12 years, past 7 years, I'm not sure, almost on or about a decade. And he is going to join me now. So Josh, I know there's certain things that we need to be sensitive about and not speak about. And I'm going to follow those rules. Like, we're not going to mention any airlines specifically. But when Joe Biden was in his speech there, he had made a reference saying that about 96 to 97% of the workers at the airlines are falling in line, basically getting their vaccines, and everything's going to be peachy keen. Do you agree with that?
No, I strongly disagree with that, Dennis. We're actually looking at closer to probably 30% across most work groups at many of these airlines. There are a few that are, there are a few that are more vaccinated than others. But I know that the airline I work with, it's about between 30 and 40% across all work groups.
Okay, so Joe Biden typically gets everything wrong. And I'm not saying that as a political statement. I'm just saying it as a generalization, which would pretty much show itself to be true if you looked at the numbers. So with that being said, he's misleading the American people with giving falsified numbers. We all know what's coming up, Thanksgiving. And the day before Thanksgiving is one of the most, if not the most, busiest day of travel. What do you see happening on that day if folks who don't get the vaccine, and I believe you're one of those folks, you won't get the vaccine, right?
Yes, that's correct.
What happens, if you could explain everything, give us what the mandate says, give us what the mandate dates are, when's the drop dead deadline, and then what happens immediately after that, both from the economy, from travel, everything. Just to unload. Go ahead.
Sure. Most of us have been given the December 8th deadline to have our exemptions in, or to prove that we've been vaccinated. If they actually follow through with determinations, let's say you lose between 20 and 30% of your pilot group, the same with flight attendants, ground staff, probably even higher numbers, you would see a complete meltdown in the airline industry. Right now, even as it stands with the projected numbers for the holiday season, most airlines don't even have the staffing to probably handle that type of volume. Even just a 10% reduction in what we're currently doing would have disastrous effects. There's no way that they can continue to operate these airlines if we just stand our ground. Most important thing we can do is stand up and say no and push back. Obviously, passengers, they don't want to see us fired either. It's going to disrupt their travel plans. And what that's going to do to the greater economy is going to be disastrous. You'll see massive fallout.
Yeah, I mean, just if we were to break this into compartments, I mean, just from a economic standpoint, if travel stops, or I mean, look, we just saw what happened a few weeks ago with one of the airlines where they had to cancel thousands of flights over a weekend. They tried to pawn it off as being some kind of technical glitch or whatever they were, weather, the weather, whatever they were saying. But I mean, meanwhile, no other airlines had to deal with that. Clearly, it was because, there were people who were just pushing back against the system, if you will. I'm choosing my words carefully. But with that being said, I mean, we could be looking at that sort of thing, cancellations being the norm on a daily basis throughout the country and maybe even around the world. So from an economic standpoint, the trickle down on that is, I mean, catastrophic. I mean, car rentals, hotel stays, all those different things, those all get canceled along with the canceled flights. So there's going to be an economic impact. But then also, I mean, what happens with things like, Amazon boxes or anything else that you're ordering, UPS? I mean, I know UPS is private, but I mean, is there any sort of arrangements that the major airlines have with those different big box companies or whatever they are, where I mean, are we going to see delays in packages also coming in as well?
It's going to affect the entirety of the economy. If you reduce air travel, I mean, we carry things like blood for hospitals, organs for or like organ donations. We carry food. We carry U.S. mail. It's going to have a massive trickle down effect. I mean, like you said, the hotel industry, rental cars. There's going to be no segment of the economy that's unaffected by this. Not to mention just the loss of money that's spent from the employees who wouldn't be paid. This isn't a small issue. What you saw happen at Southwest is just a precursor of what's to come across the entire industry. Should these airlines continue through with these terminations? That's why I don't believe that it's possible for them to do that. They know that. I know that. My fellow employees know that. And that's why we're standing up and saying no. We're not going to allow them to push us into a corner and to bring this tyranny and just force us to take it. We can easily stand up and we can make our voices heard, and we're going to do so by noncompliance.
So that's what this group that you created, this U.S. Freedom Flyers. What is it? What is it that you're trying to accomplish?
What we're trying to accomplish is to bring the companies to the negotiating table and let them know that we're not going to be treated as second-class citizens. We're all free individuals. We have the right to choose. We have the right to informed consent. And it's not up to the U.S. government or the corporation to tell any one of us what to do with our bodies. We're not anti-vaccine. We're pro-choice.
So when you say that, I mean, as far as I know, every last aspect of the airline industry is connected somehow, some way to a union. Where are the unions in this? Are the unions just turning a blind eye to the needs of people like yourself?
The majority of the unions are not supporting us. Many of them believe very strongly that we should all be vaccinated, and they have not been representing us. They have a duty to fair representation under the law, and they've absolutely failed in that. As a matter of fact, I almost consider the pilot unions to be co-founders of U.S. Freedom Flyers due to their negligence. Essentially, what we're doing is we're providing representation for the people who they're not representing, and it has become a very popular message. And the unions certainly see us as a threat because we're not going along with their political agendas and their personal opinions.
How long have you been a commercial flight pilot for?
I've been a commercial pilot for about 7 or 8 years now.
Okay. So I'm sure it's like any other profession. You and the other pilots sort of get together and have dinner or talk things out or whatever. When you talk to a pilot who is vaccinated, is there becoming sort of a resistance? Is there sort of becoming a block, a wall between you guys? Like, let's say, for instance, Johnny has gotten his vaccine. Is he coming to you and being like, "Come on, Josh, just get the freaking thing already. You're causing so many problems." Is there static between both sides, or does Johnny kind of understand where you're coming from, and does he support you?
There is some pushback, but the people pushing back, are in the minority. The large majority of vaccinated crew members support those of us who choose not to be vaccinated. As a matter of fact, a large part of our group at U.S. Freedom Flyers are our fellow employees who are vaccinated, who don't believe that we should be coerced or forced into taking something that we don't believe in. And we really appreciate their support. The way the media spends it and the way the companies are spending it is not an accurate view of what's actually going on. Every time I fly, I've always received a tremendous amount of support from the people that I work with.
So is there an extra level of stress? I mean, there's got to be all this fighting, if you will. There has to be a negative impact taking place aside from what we saw with Southwest. I mean, there has to be. Let me change the structure of the question. Josh, I hate flying. I lived 9/11. And I watched those planes hit the towers. So ever since then, I only fly if I have to. And so when I go on that flight, I'm hoping everything. I'm hoping Josh the pilot's having a good day. I'm hoping Josh the pilot is well slept. I'm hoping that the guy downstairs who was doing the system checks before everything went off, I'm hoping he's having a good day and that he's not in a bad mood and that he's been vetted. I mean, I'm going through all those different safety checks in my heads and all the different prayers. I mean, as a pilot, you have so much responsibility. You have the responsibility of the passengers. You got the responsibility of the people on the ground. I mean, you've got a lot of responsibility. Is this all adding an extra layer of massive stress that people who have to be on their top game? I mean, I got to imagine this kind of stress is got to be impacting people.
Yes, it is. Essentially, what you see happening here is the companies and the unions, they have broken the social contract that they have with their employees. It's very difficult to focus, to get the proper sleep that you need, to have your head in the game at work. When the company is holding this mandate over your head, telling you that if you're not vaccinated by December 8th, you're going to lose a career that took you many years to obtain. This isn't something where you just wake up one day and say, I'm going to be an airline pilot. It's something that we pour our entire lives into for a long time. You know, lots of time, lots of money to get to the positions where we're at. And now you're expecting these people to show up to work, to actually be focused, you know, to maintain safety protocols, and to you know, not be distracted when they're flying. So yes, this is a major issue. I know plenty of my fellow employees who've had to call out to work because they don't feel like they're fit to fly. We'll never go to work and fly if we don't feel that we're capable and safe. But what this is doing is it's already hurting the industry because it's taking people out of the game who are unable to focus, and it's only going to get worse as we get closer to the deadline.
Now, let's talk about the COVID thing for 1 second. I know you're not a doctor, you're a pilot, but I'm sure you've heard the same sort of arguments that I've had. I mean, I've had numerous doctors on this program before, all speaking about, listen, you know, the vaccine isn't what it was touted to be originally. I mean, it's fighting a strain that's not even around anymore for the most part. It's been eradicated. Now we're in Delta, and even Delta is starting to slow itself down. And we hear about all these breakthrough cases. I mean, it's awful crazy to me to think that we're going to shut down one of the most important industries in this country because Josh won't take a vaccine that isn't guaranteed to keep him healthy. And that's the part of it that just even seems a little bit crazier to me. Are you guys using that as an argument at all, saying, hey, look, you're looking to put, I heard on Fox News when you were on there that you're using religious reasoning for your rejection of the mandate. But other people who aren't doing it for religious reasons, who are doing it just because they say, hey, man, this thing, it hasn't been tested fully, in the sense that we don't know what the side effects are long term. And it was sort of rushed through. But wait a second, I've already had COVID. Why do I have to have a vaccine? I mean, what's the buzz? Are you guys using that as part of your argument, or are you trying to stay away from the science part of it and just going to the law part of it in terms of what's constitutional and what's not?
Well, I would say it's a combination of both religious and medical exemptions. And I have many friends whose doctors are telling them not to get the vaccine due to the risk of blood clots. And you know, that's an individual decision that should be made with the person's doctor. It's not up to the company, and it's not to other employees to tell a person what's right for them. As pilots, we are trained in risk analysis. And I know many people do not believe that the risk is worth the reward. You know, we haven't seen anyone in the industry be, quickly incapacitated due to catching COVID. We have, however, seen people who have been incapacitated, within hours of taking the vaccine. So it's certainly a concern. You know, in a industry where you have people who risk assess every aspect of the operation, it doesn't make sense to force a vaccine or any medical procedure on a crew member who works in a safety critical job. I think there should be more time. There needs to be more study. As far as I'm aware, I still haven't seen a study from the FAA that studies the long-term side effects on pilots. You know, what if blood clots do become a larger issue in a couple of years? I mean, what's that going to do to the industry? These are questions that need to be asked. I don't want to make a hard statement, but I will say that I don't believe that the proper studies have been done to show the long-term effects. And if we start to see adverse reactions becoming commonplace, in a couple of years, as this program continues, it could have devastating effects on the industry.
You know, when you look at a lot of the things that are taking place, I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Some things just don't make any sense here. For example, there have been numerous studies that say that masks don't work. We actually had an exposure expert on this program and said, you have to understand that the particles of COVID are 1,000 times smaller than the diameter of a string of hair. So if you were to pluck one of those hairs out of your head and take a look at it, even if you could focus in on it so small, take it down by 1,000, and that's the particle. So he said, now take a piece of hair you just plucked out of your face and try to stick it inside your mask. He says, you're going to have no problem doing it. He says, so those particles are able to come in and come out, and that's why wearing the masks has done nothing to mitigate the spread. And yet, we still get these crazy mask mandates. One of the most insane things I've seen, Josh, over the past 2 years has been airline employees going up to a 2-year-old and saying, your 2-year-old has to have that mask on or else you got to be kicked off the flight. Is that something? I mean, and in most cases, I know it may be just the video. It almost looks like the airline workers are almost liking the fact that they get to say this down on a 2-year-old. I don't know. Maybe it's just the bad videos that I've watched. But I mean, what's the chatter there? I mean, how do people feel about a 2-year-old? My goodness, you can't get a 2-year-old to sit still, let alone sit still with a mask on. Why do you think that's in place? And what do most airline employees that you have mixed with, what do they have to say about that?
Well, that really depends on the airline employee. I will tell you that most of the flight attendants that I know, they are very strongly against that. As a matter of fact, I just spoke to a friend yesterday who had this exact scenario happen on a JetBlue aircraft where a 3-year-old was unable to wear a mask, and she was very understanding and did not want to take the child off the flight. That's just ridiculous, Even on the very masks that they hand out on the aircraft, it says right on the box that they don't protect against COVID. This starts with the ridiculous stuff that we see coming out of the federal government, and then it's put into company policy. And I think that there's more emotion involved than there is science. That being said, I'm not a I'm not an expert in this. But it doesn't make sense to me, and I know a lot of people who strongly disagree with it. And I think it's criminal to throw a child off a flight because they can't or won't wear a mask.
What wound up happening in that story?
In that story, both the captain and my friend, who's the flight attendant, agreed that the child would stay on the flight. There are people still in the industry. There's many people in the industry that still have a heart and choose to apply common sense over a ridiculous mandate.
So, I didn't know that, again, because I don't fly and I haven't spoke to anybody about this. But so when you're handed the airlines, I guess, have masks at the ready. So when you're handed one of those masks, it says right in the box, this will not prevent you from catching or spreading COVID?
Unless they've changed the boxes or unless they've changed the type of mask they use. Yes, that's correct. I've seen that many times. I mean, if you go to walk into any CVS and you pick up one of those boxes of those blue masks they hand out to everyone, yeah, it says right on the box that it won't protect you against COVID.
Now, it might
really,
also. Go ahead. Finish your statement.
It's a placebo, from what I understand. It's what my doctor has told me. He said that that's not going to make any difference for me. That's one doctor's opinion, and I would tend to agree with it. Yeah,
the part that gets me is, and if I got it wrong, because I haven't flown in 2 years, so if I got it wrong, tell me this. But you have to wear a mask on the flight. But if you're going to eat or drink something, you can take the mask off to do that. Now, of all the places I've ever taken a seat in my life, maybe with the exclusion of being at a bowl game, there's never been a seat I'm more closer to a stranger than on an airplane. So here I am next to a person. I got to wear a mask the whole time. But if that person or I want to go take a sip of our coffee or Coke or whatever it is that we have, we could take the mask down and do that. Is that still in place as well?
Yes, that is still in place. More importantly, the airlines did a study with Harvard. There's a peer-reviewed study that they did in 2020 while they were trying to convince passengers to come back to flying. And that study says that an airplane is the safest place to be, and that there is no COVID outbreak that has ever been traced back to airline travel. I mean, the air in those aircraft is circulated very quickly through HEPA filtration systems. And, according to the airline's own study that's peer reviewed, it says that you're highly unlikely to catch COVID on an airplane. And yet you see these draconian rules. What I've noticed is that they change messaging to fit, whatever narrative it is that the government and the companies are trying to push at that time.
When I look at Biden and I look at this administration, I see people who are pretty much pig-headed and blockheaded, and they're not going to change for anything or anybody. And it's almost as if they'll just allow phase 2 of destroying the economy. They'll just let it unfold. I mean, the first time, obviously, President Trump had a great economy going, well, one that I've never seen in my 52 years, anything like it. Everybody was making money. Minorities were seeing upticks in their wages at a level they had never seen before. The unemployment rate was the best it was in 50 years. I mean, everything was cruising. And then all of a sudden, this so-called pandemic comes in, and boom, we shut everything down on a dime and just shut down the greatest economy of all time. And yet that economy was so strong, and it was built on such solid principles and great tax incentives and tax policy put into place by the Trump administration, that it was able to withstand that temporary shutdown. Now here we are, after we've been able to rebuild. So many people have lost so many things. There's other people who never recovered, but some people are recovering. They're digging out of the hole. And here we go with these mandates, these ridiculous mandates that are put in place, and it looked like they're going to start to really hit this month and next month. And my concern is that we are going to wind up having a president who, despite everything that you say and all these people who are going to be walking off the job, he just doesn't care. I hope that you can say something here to me to say that I'm wrong. I mean, do you have, I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being likely, what do you think is the number that you would place on the chances that the airlines in the last minute, in the 11th hour, have a change of heart and say, all right, Josh, all right, everybody, we're going to take every exception that you come in, whether it be religious or medical? I mean, what's the hope factor here that we don't shut down?
I think it's actually probably an 8 or a 9. These companies cannot operate without us. They need us far more than we need them. What they're doing right now is they are participating in coercion. They're trying to scare people into compliance. The reason for U.S. Freedom Flyers is to help people stand strong, to empower them, to help them realize that they do have a voice and they do make a difference. I know for a fact that they can't afford to lose us, especially in a time where we have pilots being forced into retirements at extremely high rates due to the mandatory retirement age of 65. Mm-hmm. The next 10 years are going to see the largest retirements within the industry that we've ever seen. And like I said before, you don't just create a pilot out of thin air overnight. It takes many years. So they don't really have a choice in this as long as we stand strong. And I just want people to understand that you do matter, your opinion matters, and don't allow yourself to be bullied.
If I can't tell you how many times you've probably seen them yourself, Josh. I don't know what part of the country you're from, but being somebody who lived in New York for so many years, you'd go past a construction site and you'd see a big, huge rat, a blow up rat that was in front of a construction site. And what that represented was that the company that was hiring, let's say, the electricians to do a job, they weren't using union labor. They were using, instead of what they would call scabs, right? People who were non-union. With that in mind, is there any opportunity for the airlines to say, okay, Josh, okay, Dennis, okay, Bill, you guys don't want to fly? That's fine. Go ahead. We're going to bring in the scabs. Is there such a thing as scabs, or does that not apply in the airline industry?
Yes, there is such a thing, and I don't see that happening. First of all, I don't think the unions would allow that. That's a very touchy issue, to be sure. But no, that's not something that I anticipate happening in the U.S. airline industry. There would be absolute outrage among the pilots that are currently working at the airline, as well as the ones that would obviously be put on the termination list.
Let's say, for instance, you're wrong, right? Does that pose a danger to people flying?
Well, that certainly could. I mean, if they tried to backfill the ranks with, let's say, third world pilots, that we've seen other airlines do this, foreign airlines. Yeah, I think it definitely would pose a risk, but it's not something that I see as a viable solution. It's not something that we anticipate at all.
Okay. You had something here. I see some notes here. It says airlines spend millions of dollars on inclusivity training to bring awareness to marginalized populations that are excluded and discriminate. Can you? What is it? What do you mean? What kind of training is that?
Well, it's like it's part of our annual training when we go in for our simulator checks and those types of things. They always spend a day, talking about diversity and inclusion, and it's basically telling us what a problem we are, how we're causing issues for the airlines. Like they love to project. What they're doing right now is in direct violation to their own principles. They are dividing us. They are excluding a certain subset of people, and it's just ironic to hear the words that come out of their mouth and then to actually see the actions and how they're treating us. They obviously don't believe their own policies, and they certainly don't follow them.
Well, when you have it here, it says awareness to marginalized populations. I've never heard of that. Who's marginalized? So, in other words, inclusivity. So, will they sit there and say to you, "Okay, listen, make sure you treat your black passengers as well as you treat your white passengers"? Is it one of those sort of things, or one of those new woke sort of programs?
Yes, these airlines are some of the most woke companies that you'll ever deal with.
Good God.
And like I said, it's very ironic to hear them, constantly talk about this. And I do agree that it is important to include everyone and to treat people with respect. But what's really interesting is that they are violating their own policies, and they're doing so in a very large manner. It's just completely disingenuous, and all of us as employees, we see right through it. We know what the agenda is, and we're not going along with it.
Oh, of course. Listen, they're going to sit there and tell you, first of all, I have been on hundreds of flights, especially before 9/11 in my business. I'd have to travel all the time. I have never in any of my days seen a flight attendant or a pilot treat somebody different or less than because of the color of their skin. I've never seen it at all. So I don't understand why you would need that sort of training. It's sort of ridiculous to me, but you are correct. Here they are, they're spending all this money on making sure that you don't marginalize somebody who looks differently than you or prays differently than you. And yet here they are treating you, somebody who doesn't want to take a vaccine, they're treating you as if you're the trash to be thrown out to the side. That being said, when people are monitoring this, Josh, because obviously the holidays are coming up, do you know about any meetings that are taking place, negotiations that are taking place? Are they taking place now? Are those conversations happening now? Or are we going to let this go all the way to the cliff and then there's going to be these emergency meetings?
Yeah, there are a few airlines that are coming out, and they're realizing that they can't operate without us. And we have been told at several airlines that exemptions will be approved, that type of thing. What you're seeing right now from these companies is a bluff. All we have to do is stand our ground. And obviously, if they do decide to go through with terminations, we also have lawsuits prepared for them. We are raising money through U.S. Freedom Flyers, and we are prepared to sue them.
Good.
Because what they're doing is illegal. We're planning to sue the federal government as well as the companies if they don't fall into line. We're not just going to stand up and be discriminated against and be treated like this. The employees of these companies are worth a lot more. They deserve a lot better. And I personally can't stand by and watch people's lives be destroyed just because they choose to make a personal choice that's right for them. I truly believe in personal freedom, and that's what I'm standing up for.
Well, Joe Biden says that your freedom is going to kill people. I mean, you heard what he said, oh, yeah, I've got the freedom to kill you with my COVID. I mean, the guy is just so combative. It's unbelievable. Look, I appreciate what you're doing. It's U.S. Freedom Flyers. Where do people, what's the website?
Yes, the website is usfreedomflyers.org. And we would truly appreciate if you would come and sign up. If you sign up for our emails, you'll be made aware of events that we're doing around the country. We're doing alignment with other freedom movements. We're doing freedom rallies. And it's always amazing to us when our passengers show up and support us. We really appreciate it. What we're doing right now, standing up to these airlines, is also going to help the passenger. For those people who aren't aware, there's a bill right now. It's called HR 4980. And the proposal of that bill is that passengers will be locked down as well. If you're unvaccinated, you'll be unable to arrive or depart any U.S. airport. So please help us win this fight on an employee level, because when you do that, you're going to benefit as a passenger. If this is something that is a problem for you and that you plan to remain unvaccinated as a passenger, you really need to help us with this so that you don't need to experience it here in a few months. They're talking about implementation of this as early as this winter.
Yeah, I got to tell you something, Josh. I love what you're doing. And on this program, we have said a million times that the only way to stop this, and when I say this, I just don't mean what's going on with you in the airline industry. I'm talking about across the board, whether it's what's happening in schools, what's happening in our police departments, what's happening across the country with the military, all these vaccine mandates, all the lies that continue to be pushed out there, and just everybody in the media ignores them. Everybody in the health field ignores them. You know, look at what's going on right now. Now the big trending hashtag is arrest Fauci. I mean, he's a disaster. It's just disastrous. There's only one way to actually win this battle, and that's what it is, a battle. And it's what you're doing. You have nailed it on the head multiple times during this program. You said, we have to stand up and we have to push back. We have to fight back. And you don't mean, I know you're not saying fight in terms of lifting up your fist and throwing a punch. You're talking about using common sense. Hey, airline, we know that with 30% of us across all the different aspects of the air travel business, if we all walk off the job, if we're not able to, I shouldn't even say walk off the job, because you're not calling for a strike, you're not calling for anything like that. If you're going to fire us all, we're not going to cave. We're not going to get that mandate. You're going to fire us all? No way. Your industry is going to fall flat on its face. You're saying, be brave, take a stand, go all the way to the edge, and these people will actually cave. And I like your plan. There are some people who are going to say, I can't do that. I got bills to pay. I can't take that risk. And I understand that too. The government has pinned people against the wall to where they're choosing between what they believe in and their own health choices and being able to pay the rent or pay the mortgage. And it's disgusting. But it's people like you who are actually standing up and fighting the good fight that may actually allow us to get past this crazy time and get back to normal. Josh, I'll give you the final word if you got something to say. Other than that, I appreciate everything you're doing, and I hope people go visit your website. Last word to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's time that we all remember that we're Americans. We need to study the history of our country and see where we came from, remember where we came from. That's what we're doing again. You know, we're taking our country back. We're forging a new path. And it's just time to stand up and resist. The time for tyranny is over. I think we're all tired of it. I know I'm tired of it. And I'm encouraging other people to stand up with me.
Good for you. It's amazing. I mean, as a pilot, you have to be amazed by it. I mean, I'm always amazed about how a plane can take off and land so quickly, right? I mean, think about where we were, Josh, 2 years ago, and the fact that we're here 2 years later. It's impossible to believe it can happen. All right, Josh, stay well. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, pal. Well, there you go. Look, I've said it to you a million times on the program before, and I'm going to close out today by saying it again. It's people like Josh who are brave, who are scared, but brave. You think Josh wants to lose his job? Think Josh wants to take an entire career spent and say, adios, see you later? No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't at all. But he's standing up, and he's standing up not just for himself, he's standing up for you. And I think that's one of the things that, make for a hero. A hero doesn't do something for themselves. They do something for others. And the fact that he is standing up tall and saying, no, we've got to do this together, says a lot about him. And we need more of them. All right. Well, that's it for me. Thanks. Just a few things here. If you're Team DML, you're actually seeing this on video. So we've actually got the first part working, but I am here doing this alone. Tomorrow, I'll have a crew with me, and we will be able to bring you really better video in the sense of more clips and things of that nature. So hang in there. We finally got it. We're going to be improving it all week long. And then by next week, we should be fully rocking and rolling here with the video version of the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast. If you're interested in watching the program versus just listening to it for free on the DML News app, go to teamdml.com. In fact, if you're using the app, you could just go to the fifth tab where it says interact and then just hit teamdml.com, sign up for a membership, and you'll get to see the program on video, which is exclusive to our Team DML members. That said, what is available to everybody is the last day for the buy one, get one free of the hand and foot cream. And let me tell you, I actually use this myself, and I had a problem, and it solved that problem for me. And we were actually going to video it. And if it comes back, I'll video it again. It's a little grotesque. I'm not sure if you want to see this video or not, but now that I've moved to Florida, I'm never wearing sneakers anymore. I'm never wearing socks. I'm constantly wearing flip-flops. And if I'm not in my flip-flops, I'm in bare feet. And I've seen that the bottom of my foot, by the heel, has started to crack and gotten super dry. So I said, you know what, let me use the foot cream. And I've had, Mary uses the foot cream all the time. It works wonders for her. I've had times where I've used the foot cream. I use it for my hands and things of that nature, but I've never really used it immersed like big time throughout the day. So for 3 days in a row, I used it 3 times, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and once at nighttime before I went to bed. And within 4 days, the cracks on my feet were gone, and the roughness and the yuckiness of my foot was back to being nice and smooth. This stuff works like magic. Go to dmlcbd.com/cream, CREAM. We have the buy one, get one free. It ends today, and it won't be back for the rest of the year. Buy one, get one free on dmlcbd.com/cream for the hand and foot cream. Today is the last day. And that's that. All right. Until tomorrow, may God bless you, our troops, these United States, your entire family, Josh Yoder, and all the people who are standing their ground and fighting the good fight.
This podcast is produced by Anita Griffey, Lori McLean, and yours truly. And you could subscribe by going to the Apple Podcasts page and search for Dennis Michael Lynch Podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Or you can download the DML News app from the Google Play Store for Android phones and the Apple App Store for iPhones. And do not forget to visit our sponsor, DMLCBD.com, so this way you can feel great again.